What's going on, fellow engineers? This video, I'm going to actually do some of the meta tag analysis on my site and discuss a tool that I found that will help you do it on your site as well. Stay tuned. Welcome back. So thank you for checking out this channel. If this is your first time to the channel, please be sure to subscribe by clicking the subscribe button down below. Each week I come with new videos that talk about technology on Tuesdays and DIY and home improvement tasks on Saturdays. So if either of those topics interest you, please be sure to subscribe. What I was doing was making some updates to my website, and if you are familiar with the OG or organic open graph, I believe it is, tags, those help search engines as well as social media sites understand the content that is posted on a particular web page. And going through my site, I wanted to make some updates to that content. And I just went and did a search of like all of the open graph tags that needed to be used or should be used on a given site. And here's what I ended up running across. So if we come over to the computer, I have I was reading an article on Neil Patel's website. And if you are familiar with Neil Patel, he does a lot of discussions about branding and social media and search engine optimization. He kind of stays in that wheelhouse when it comes to discussing topics. And one of the articles that he posted was regarding the OG tags on a particular website. Again, OG stands for Open Graph, and it helps these social media sites better understand. Twitter has its own set of tags, but is similar in nature to how those tags are used by a particular site. And what will happen is that when you use the open graph tags, you get when somebody shares your content from a particular website, you get a article or post that's formatted similar to this versus one that just has random information on it that doesn't look as well structured as it could be. In my particular scenario, Neil provided a tool that exists, is on Facebook. If I can get back to it, it's called the sharing debugger. It's mentioned here. And what that is you give it a URL and it will analyze the metadata from that particular page URL that you provide. And I gave it one of the pages that I recently published, which was how to prune branches in Visual Studio. I have those tags in my page already, and they're set to be dynamic based upon the metadata that's provided for a given page. And this is what it extracted out. So it got the URL, it determined the type to be a website, it determined the title, and so forth. There are some items here that are empty that I'm going to do more investigation on what these should be set to. And it also pulled like what the metadata is for the entire page. And if you come up here at the very top, it states the things that should be fixed. So one of which, it assumed what the OG image was based upon some of the data that was actually in the body of the page, but I don't have a tag that explicitly defines this particular item. So what I did was I went to my website template. Again, I'm using MKDocs for my website template. If you're using WordPress, there should be a similar plugin or module that has this same type of functionality where it allows you to modify the meta tags on your web pages. But in my website template, I have an attribute here that I've added that says that if the page.meta.image exists on a given page, then you need to add the property of OG image as the page.meta.image, and for the Twitter, you do Twitter image and set it to the same thing. I actually need to put this to convert that to a URL, and the same thing here. Now on my pages that do have this image tag, what I would do is to add in the metadata, I will add the path to the image. And what this will do in my static site generator is it will take the full URL and put it into that OG image tag as well as the Twitter image tag. And that will resolve this particular issue about the inferred property related to images. There's another thing here that mentions missing properties. So as you see, because it couldn't find the OG image, it still referenced that. But then there's also the Facebook app ID. Now my website does not have a Facebook app ID, so I may just put the tag in there with no actual content in it, just to satisfy that this should be fixed, or to satisfy this being fixed. Normally, if you have a website that, let's say, uses Facebook authentication to allow people to log in, you will put the Facebook app ID into the meta tag. And so if people are logged into your site using Facebook credentials, Facebook knows where that page was coming from and so forth. And from that, you're able to see that data in a dashboard within Facebook. So there's a lot of interconnectivity with it as far as using the Facebook app ID. But again, I don't have anything or an app ID to use for that, so I'm not going to leverage that particular part. And everything else in this is the way that it should be. There are other items on here that you can do, such as using graphs and see exactly what the scraper sees and so forth. I will say the first time that I pulled up and put this URL in, it said that the URL had never been shared, so it did not have said data, which is understandable. And what I had to do was I had to tell it to go fetch said URL. So if I go back to my website, I am going to put another one in here. Don't believe this page has been shared, just to show you what it will do. So I've copied the URL. I'm going to paste it in and hit debug. And as you see here, this URL hasn't been shared on Facebook before, and you have to tell it to fetch new information. And so it will go and make that request to that URL and load what it is able to determine back from it. And as you see here, time scrape 2 seconds ago, got the URL. Now this should be your canonical URL of your website. The OG type will vary. This actually needs to be a blog type or article type instead of website type. So I've already changed that as one of the conditions in my website. As you see here, I have, if I specify the type on that page, then show that type. Otherwise, if it's a item in the blog directory, then we want to set the type to article. Anything else, we want to set it to website. And I'm not going to show it here, but there are other types that can be used. You can do a simple internet search for the OG types, and you'll get a list of everything list of the options that you can choose from for those OG types. It also has the updated time. I'm not sure if this is the same as the updated time that I have in here, but I don't have the updated time in the page, so maybe it's reading the page content to determine that. There are other values that I'm going to continue to research on to see if I can be able to use that information. And the reason being is because the social media sites is kind of like where a lot of your shares and exposure comes in at, when people are reading your article and they find it interesting, intriguing, or they know somebody that can relate to it and they share it. You want that information to show up as much as possible with all the necessary information to be filled in as possible as well. And I'm sure you've probably seen it where somebody goes and they share a post that, come to find out, was from like 4 years ago, but it looked very recent based upon the details in it that were being discussed. By making sure that like it has the date and other necessary data in it, you prevent that from happening. So that wraps things up for this video. If you have any issues with the OG tags on your website, again, look at it, and I'll have a link to this particular tool, which again is the sharing debugger tool. I'll put a link to that down in the description below so you can use it as well. Any questions related to this, drop those in the comments. Also, be sure to subscribe Down below, there's a red button. Click that, and also click the bell for notifications. And if you learned something from this video, please give it a thumbs up. That helps me know that you're interested in this content, and that also helps YouTube share that, make others aware of this content being available. So until next time, peace out.